All right, welcome back. Michael Avenatti has been sentenced to 2.5 years in prison after a jury found him guilty of trying to extort Nike out of more than $20 million. Now, you may, of course, remember Avenatti as the brash lawyer who represented adult film star Stormy Daniels in her lawsuit against former President Trump. Daniels claimed that she was paid off by Trump to keep her affair secret, claims that were dismissed in federal court in 2019. But for the media, this was the perfect excuse to further their anti-Trump agenda. The film star claims that Avenatti stole $300,000 from her when the lawyer was found guilty of extortion in February of 2020. Daniels spoke out on Instagram saying, quote, "Sadly, it appears that what Michael Avenatti did to me was just the tip of the iceberg of deceit. His arrogant, fraudulent, and overly aggressive behavior became so pervasive that the jury found his true character." And Daniels may not have been the only victim. Back in 2019, Avenatti was sued by a former client with for paralegal work who accused the lawyer of stealing more than $4 million from a settlement that he previously won. And even then, Avenatti was treated like royalty by the left, according to the Conservative Media Research Center. News outlets hosted Avenatti 254 times in just 1 year, and they did all that praising of it. Some of it was pretty embarrassing. The Washington Free Beacon has also analyzed Avenatti's media appearances. They did this back in 2019, and they found he basically got $175 million worth of free media from MSNBC and CNN from May to March of that year. Just a short time span. That is a love story, if I ever heard one. Let's welcome in now Turning Point USA contributor, lawyer, and Republican strategist Aaron Elmore. Also the host of Stacy on the Right on SiriusXM, Stacy Washington, co-chair of Project 21 and journalist at the Free Beacon, Matthew Foldy. Great to have everybody with us today. I think, Aaron, it is impossible to state how bad this makes the mainstream media look. We heard about the analysis from the Washington Free Beacon. The Brian Stelter clip of him sipping his coffee, talking about presidential aspirations for Michael Avenatti. And of course, there's no reflection on this, Aaron. No moment of point where CNN has any contrition about this. Maybe we should have pumped the brakes. Of course not. No, right?
Yeah, according to Wake Up Right, Avenatti did 214 media appearances. So what I would just simply like to ask these media outlets, how do you feel that you were propping up and supporting a now convicted felon? And the judge had very harsh words for Avenatti. He said, "What you did was outrageous." And you spoke earlier about how this is the tip of the iceberg. There are more lawsuits to follow, both civil and more criminal. And the allegations just continue to pile up. I don't think that this 2.5-year jail sentence is going to be the only time that he is behind bars or in a jumpsuit, because he's really a bad guy with a bad moral compass, and the left-wing media is complicit with propagandizing against the right. And all this was about was Donald Trump. And in any attempt, they will grasp at straws to attempt to take down President Trump. And as we've seen, none of it works. These people all turn out to be exactly what they are, charlatans and frauds.
I want to go ahead and play some of the media coverage and the praise of Avenatti, just so we have some context. Let's take a look.
Lately, to me, you're like the Holy Spirit. You are all places at all times, right? I do. I see you all over cable news. I see you, there is a seat available if you want to be a co-host at The View.
Looking ahead to 2020, one reason why I'm taking you seriously as a contender is because of your presence on cable news.
He's not only the attorney who represents Stormy Daniels, he's Donald Trump's worst nightmare. Michael Avenatti.
No one has talked tougher directly to Donald Trump on TV than Michael Avenatti, and Donald Trump is afraid to mention his name.
I gotta ask you before we go, you running for president?
Matthew, as we say in the meme world, you hate to see it, don't you?
It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. The Brian Stelter clip is so demonstrative of the feedback loop that the media exists in. Oh, I'm taking you seriously as a presidential candidate because you're always on my network.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't make any sense. I am the reason why I'm now taking you seriously as a presidential candidate. You do hate to see it, but you unfortunately don't see any introspection from the media now about why we were boosting this charlatan for so long, obviously the mainstream media. And now he's in jail. I would submit to you that it would actually be a lot of fun for his weekly call from jail to be on your show. We could hear from him once a week for the next 2.5 years about what life is like behind bars, because now that he's no longer useful to the left, I don't expect that he'll be booked on CNN anytime soon. So maybe he'd actually be an interesting guest, to call in here every once in a while.
Well, I would like to hear from him because I do care about the conditions inside America's prisons and, making sure that due process happens. And, especially when it comes to a lawyer like this one who's now been, debased in a court of law. Stacy, the reporting says that he was crying at the time of his sentencing.
Of course he was. He's losing his freedom. I mean, that's a human response to being held to account for your behavior after having so many, like almost years of him being lauded for being, a criminal and someone who he was a charlatan, and they knew it. They propped him up intentionally, and they knew he would fall, and they knew they wouldn't be around to help him when it happened. So I want to point out something. Ana Navarro said he was like the Holy Spirit. He was everywhere at all times. At that point, he himself should have realized what they were doing to him because, that's blasphemous, number one. And number two, she was making him out to be superhuman. And so at that point, when you're on television and someone tells you that you are like the Holy Spirit everywhere at all times, go home, start checking. You're in trouble. You're about to go down. And I think it's also illustrative that they gleefully propped him up. And now there's not a peep about him. Of course, we're reporting on it. We're discussing it here. Right-sided media is, kind of noting, hey, this guy said he was going to take down President Trump. President Trump is still out there dancing across America at rallies, enjoying Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster, and living his best life with Melania and his super tall son, Barron. And this guy's in jail. And as Aaron so aptly pointed out, this won't be the only prison term that he serves because he was drunk on his own fake news media coverage. Yep. He went too far. I think it's a good thing to happen to him because we see so little justice meted out nowadays on the left. But he's not really the biggest player, is he? There are so many others on the left who really need to be prosecuted for their crimes and are still running around living their best lives. When are they going to be brought to justice?
You mentioned that Ana Navarro calling him like the Holy Spirit. And this is why if you're on television, you need a spouse or a parent or a loved one. When you go home, you're like, hey, honey, Ana Navarro told me I was like, Jesus Christ. And your wife will, mine would put me in my place very
Ariel
quickly.
will not allow that.
No, she wouldn't. She always keeps me grounded. We'll just leave it at that. Aaron, the other thing, too, about this is Michael Avenatti was cast as, a defender of women's rights, standing up for feminists. But here he is also accused of, extorting money and stealing money from Stormy Daniels, the woman he was claiming to protect.
Wow, hypocrisy from the left-wing media and their pundits. Nothing surprising here. But you know what I was just thinking about, and this is more of a question than a statement. So Rudy Giuliani has effectively been disbarred for his alleged behavior. Is Michael Avenatti still a member of the bar in good standing? That I would like to know, because that to me would be disparate treatment based upon politics. And our law licenses or medical license or any kind of licenses that we have shouldn't be subjected to political whims, if you will. And yes, of course, Michael Avenatti is a terrible man that alleged to be a supporter of women, and then he went and stole, allegedly, of course, from Stormy Daniels. This is what we call in the law just desserts. His chickens are coming home to roost, as the lay people say, and he deserves everything that he's getting. And yes, he was crying because he's actually seeing the reality and the consequences of his actions.
Now, Aaron, this is the one thing, right, that, there are a lot of things lawyers can't do. Obviously, they're have to live by the law like everybody else. But for an attorney to steal money from a client like this, there's no coming back from that as an attorney, right?
That is basically the first thing they teach you in law school on the ethics side of things. The easiest way to get in trouble, both legally and with the bar organizations, is to commingle or mix funds or sort of take funds in any way, shape, or form. That's basically rule number one. Your money's over here. The client's money's over here. There have to be separate accounts. This all has to be done very clearly and very specifically and very transparently. And he clearly didn't do that in several circumstances.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it there for the time being. But when we see our friends an hour from now, it will be meme team time. I hope everybody's got their memes ready. There was a lot to talk about this week. The door-to-door vaccine push. Lots of Lego memes out there in the meme world. And can't wait to see everybody's memes coming up at 1:30, guys. Stay with us. We'll see you then.